Yo guys, Punkrat with another video. So for this one, I'm going to utilize the little bit of time that I have in the stress test to go over some of the first things that you should be doing to set yourself up when logging into the game. You can do this during the stress test, so you don't have to worry about it when the game actually launches, or of course, if you don't want to sub till release, you can do all of this stuff when the game officially releases. But it is clearly better to do now so you don't have to waste any of your time managing your UI before launch day, but it's not really the end of the world. My tip for doing this stuff on launch day would be to only manage your UI during downtime, like running to a main city, or if you're on a boat, on a griffin ride, running back to your dead body, or just multitask some of it while you're actually auto-attacking enemy mobs. You really don't want to slow yourself down during the initial launch. It's super important to get ahead of the pack since Northshire is actually going to look like this, so you want to get as far ahead of the cluster as possible. A lot of this stuff is pretty basic, so some of you guys might just roll your eyes, but this is to cater to new players or players who haven't yet gotten used to the retail UI settings. So without further ado, here's the first things that you need to do when logging into WoW Classic for the first time. Let's get into it. Okay, so we log into the game, and then the first thing that you're going to want to do is set up your movement. So if you see, my character here is, when I hit A and D, actually spinning around. That's not ideal. What you want to do is actually re-keybind your turn left and turn right to A and D, strafe left and strafe right. That way you can sort of jiggle your character around and leave most of the turning down to your mouse. Setting up your movement like this actually allows you to do what I'm doing right now on screen, which is called strafe kiting. And actually the next video that I post, it's probably going to be, probably on Sunday. I'm going to go pretty in depth and explain to you guys exactly how to do this if you don't know already. So stay tuned for that one. The next thing that you want to do is turn on auto loot. You don't have to do this if you're used to actually just shift looting things. You don't want to necessarily loot everything, but I'd say the first time you're leveling a character, especially in the low levels, you literally want to be picking up everything. You want to be filling up your bags, emptying them out, filling up your bags, emptying them out over and over again. So I just suggest keeping auto loot on and just looting absolutely everything. Now the next thing that you're going to want to do is actually enable target of target. This is actually going to enable the little interface unit frame where it shows who your target is targeting. So if it's targeting you, if it's targeting whatever, someone else, super important, especially if you're a hunter or you're a tank, to know if your pet has aggro or to just know if you have aggro on the mob as a main tank. Now, something that's maybe not super needed, but I'd suggest it, is actually moving your unit frames. I think having them all the way in the top left corner is just a bit too far. Your eyes actually have to look up to see health. You should probably bring them closer to the actual focal point of your monitor so that you're able to see what's going on as you're playing your character without having to move your eyes too much. And it kind of creates like a HUD around your character. Now, another really crucial thing for leveling is actually turning on instant quest text. So if you guys know, in the old version of the game, I'm not sure if it was like this in later expansions. I can't remember because I've just always had it enabled. But in vanilla, if you go to a quest NPC, it's actually going to scroll through the quest text really slowly. You're just sitting there at the quest NPC waiting for all of the text to scroll through before you could actually accept it. The accept quest button is going to be grayed out until it finishes its process. So I'd suggest immediately for fast leveling, turn on instant quest text. Another thing that I always do is disable profanity filter. So you log in with profanity filter enabled baseline. So if you want to actually see what people are saying, regardless of whether or not they're saying something nice or something bad, you're going to want to turn off profanity filter. So you'll also notice that you only have your main bar. You're going to want to go into the action bar tab and enable the bottom left and bottom right action bars. This is going to give you those extra action bars that you're most likely used to, so they don't show up baseline. You actually have to enable them. I'm sure most of you guys already know that. So just go to your action bars, enable all of them, and then that way you'll have a lot more room for new abilities that you get as you're leveling up to pop them in. Or alternatively, you could do this as you level up, just start off with one, but I tend to already have a structure of how I want to place things. So I like the extra bars, and I'll place skills where I actually consciously want them to be. Now here's another really important thing, which is also tied in with the movement, setting your strafe and strafe kiting in general. You're going to want to change your camera options. So you're going to go to the camera interface option, and you're going to take off camera following style from smart and turn it on to never. And this is actually going to allow you to look behind you as you're running somewhere without your camera readjusting behind your character. This is extremely useful for world PvP. It's useful for questing. It's just useful in general so that you can sort of scope what's going on behind you while still running in a straight line or side or wherever the hell you really want to look. And alongside this, I also like to increase the max camera distance. So if you have a keybind for zooming in and out on your camera, you can adjust it and go all the way back or all the way in, depending on what you want to do, what you want to see. If you want to see around a corner, around a wall, you could zoom out, then sort of edge your camera around the corner. The actual initial limitation of having it on low, which is the baseline as you log on, is way too low. It boxes your viewport way too close to your character and limits what you're actually able to see around you. One thing that I've noticed about the first time that I logged into retail is actually that my mouse sensitivity felt way off. So I went in and I played around with the look speed a little bit. I played around with the mouse sensitivity and just tested it until I got it to, something that felt comfortable. So that's also something that you're probably going to want to do. And the next thing is actually something that's a really big change in Classic WoW. So if you guys know, the party frames in original vanilla were really not great. And most people would end up downloading Xpearl party frames or Grid or all kinds of different things, Luna, in order to compensate for that factor. Well, in Classic, we have the new and improved raid frames and party frames. So what I would do here is actually set them up so that every time you're in a group or every time you're in a party, you have those nice raid frames set up, good to go already. So you're gonna want to invite someone to your group just so you can actually test them, because you won't be able to otherwise. And the first thing that you need to do is actually click use raid style party frames. And if you see here, that's gonna convert your frames to raid frames, your party frames to raid frames. You're gonna want to enable power bar so you can see mana. In vanilla, mana is extremely relevant. So you absolutely need your power bars displaying, especially if you're a tank. You need to know if your raid is good on mana or not, because if you pull one mob and your healer's out of mana, you're finished, you're toast. Then you're gonna wanna adjust the width and the height of your frames to something that you like. If you're a healer or someone who can dispel, you might wanna click this option right here that says display only dispellable debuffs. And what that's gonna do is, instead of on the party frames showing all the different debuffs, it's only gonna show what you can actually dispel. That way you can prioritize seeing only what you need to see in order to dispel targets effectively. I also really don't like the border, so I disable the border. Display pets if you want it, that's sort of optional. And a really important thing is displaying class color, just because we're visual creatures, I think most of us, and we tend to associate the different classes with different colors, more so than I think reading a name or anything like that. If you're colorblind, it might be a bit different, or if your brain just works differently. But I think for the most part, most of us are quite visual and we respond to different colors quite well. Now, another thing that you can set up is that if you only want to activate your raid frames depending on the size of group that you're in, you could hit these little checkers on the right side to only display raid frames when you're in a 5-man group, so when you're doing dungeons, and otherwise you'll just use the base party frames in a smaller group while just questing or something. But I'd personally suggest just use the raid style frames, they're much better. And the next thing I like to do is actually position my party frames a little bit inside and create that little HUD aspect that I was talking about around my character. And that allows me to sort of monitor and see everything that's going on. But keep in mind, when you enter a raid, whether there's 20 people, 15, 40, whatever it is, World PvP, ZG, Molten Core, Battleground, that if you have it set up this way, it's probably gonna pop up in your face and you're gonna have to move it. So if you wanna move your party frames somewhere else, make them smaller, you can, so you don't have to deal with that. Now, another thing that I'm gonna do, since I activated all of my different action bars earlier, is I'm actually gonna set up a base level of keybinds. So I already know, I've already played a hunter before, I know what abilities I'm gonna get, and I know what my keybinds are for those abilities. So I'm just gonna set up a little base here. Now, before you set up your keybinds at all, you might wanna actually click character specific keybinds. I wouldn't personally do this on my first character just to get a base, but keep in mind that everything that you're changing here right now is just the baseline for your account. But if you click character specific keybinds, everything that you do is just going to save to this specific character. So it won't affect any other character that you make, or if you already had another character and you've never clicked that button, if you change keybinds here, it's actually going to change the keybinds on that other character. I'm going to use my shift 1 through 5. I'm going to use F1 to 4. I'm going to use all of my single click keys on my keyboard and just set up all of my favorite keybinds. I'm going to use the Y here. I'm going to put it all the way to the side. The moment I get a mount, I could just pop my mount there and I don't have to keybind it. Now, all of this stuff is actually account bound. It creates a cache folder. So if you do it here on the stress test, you're not going to have to actually redo it when you log in the game, when the game actually releases. Now, team play and coordination is incredibly important. So one of the most important things that you could actually set up is target markers. So you're going to want to actually set keybinds for these. I personally would suggest that, especially if you're a tank, and that'll allow you to target enemies and just immediately set up markers for your group to know what to hit, what to polymorph, and it makes things go so much faster. You're probably even going to be using markers while questing out in the world, since you have, multiple group quests and multiple quests that are quite hard and you're going to be doing in a group anyways. This allows you to coordinate with your party much easier, much quicker, and much more effectively. Now, after you've set your base keybinds, you've probably set a bunch of them to your single click keys like C, X, V. So that's going to actually unbind the default, which Your C is opening your character pane, your X is to sit down, and your Z, I'm pretty sure, is to unsheath your weapons. Now these are really important things in vanilla. Unsheathing your weapons is something you could do in PvP, it's something you could do to show off your weapons in Ironforge. There's just so many times that you just want to pull your weapons out with their enchants. Sitting down is for teabagging people that you kill in world PvP, and to open up your character pane, I mean, who doesn't want to do that, right? So set those keybinds to something not super crucial, like maybe equal sign, 0, and minus sign, or something further on the keyboard that you don't actually need to click reactively. So just reset those keybinds and keep that one in mind. And another thing that you're going to want to do if you're playing either a hunter or a warlock is you're going to want to set your pet keybinds. So pet keybinds are right here under action bar. You just go to pet action button 1 all the way through 10. 10 is actually passive and 1 is attack, pet attack. I actually know where everything pretty much is already, so I'm going to set my pet keybinds before I actually get a pet, and that way once I have the pet I don't have to set any keybinds. It's already going to be baseline set up, ready to go the moment I tame my first pet. And one last thing that you're going to want to do, which I probably should have mentioned earlier, but I'll just add it in here at the end, which is also something that lost its keybind the moment you used all your one-click keys. It's actually your V. You're going to want to set up your keybind for toggle enemy nameplates. I tend to put it at Control V. You could really put it as whatever you want, but this just toggles the little health bar above enemies when they're around you, which is something that you should definitely be using. Oh, and damn, I keep forgetting things, so I'll just add it at the end here, but you want to actually enable UI scaling and then drop it down or drag it exactly where you want it. I have a pretty big screen, so it's actually way too big on this resolution, so I tend to drop it down just a little bit, just so it's easier on the eyes and the actual interface is not, too overwhelming. Alright friends, that's all I got for this one. Some of you guys may be asking about add-ons, but I haven't really had time to set anything up yet. The stress test has been extended till Monday, so if you guys want to see me make a video about setting up a basic UI for Classic, let me know in the comments section. Maybe I'll do that before the weekend is over, I guess. Hopefully this video is useful to you guys. If you liked it and want to support the type of content that I'm creating here on YouTube, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, of course, you know the drill. Follow my Twitch for spicy memes, join the Discord for epic memes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.